Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to our December meeting of the Union County Board of Education. We're glad you're with us tonight. Appreciate you being here on this rainy night. At this time, I'd like to ask Keith Ledford to lead us in our invocation, please.
Thank you for this afternoon, Lord God, and we just ask you to give us leadership and guidance in all that's done and said. We ask you to be with every decision that's made. We ask all of it to be a blessing to our children. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, first thing, work session is discussion items.
Mr. Chairman, before we get into those discussions, might I ask the board to remove item number 2 at the request of those presenting for the trip. They're going to consider some other alternatives, given the cost and some things that they're running into with details. So,
Okay.
if we could remove number 2, and we will we'll start with number 1 and then follow up with the CCRPI summary.
Okay.
We have spent a great deal of time over the past several months with a lot of time spent with Keith Ledford and Chris Crow on our end, and then our friends at BOE Watson, and also Southern A&E, working on trying to pull together some projects that would provide some nice renovations and upgrades to the high school HVAC, and also some middle and high school renovations for classroom and laboratory space. So we have that information that was provided to you in the bid tab in your electronic document. It's also going to be up on the screen, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Keith Ledford to introduce our guest and kind of walk the board through what that proposal is, those prices, and where we are with pricing on completing those 3 projects.
Well, I'd like to introduce to you Keith Watson, David Keener, Neil Williams from BOE Watson tonight, and also from Southern A&E, Steve McHugh, and I'll turn it over to them.
Steve, you want to make a description on the buildings themselves first, the additions, and then we'll go into the pricing part of it, and that maybe the way to do this? Put you on the spot.
Well, I think first of all, one of the bigger projects is adding the second floor to the C-wing on the high school. A lot of consideration and thought went into this, and a lot of back and forth, and I think got it to where everybody was happy with it and where it needed to be. And so that's going to be adding a second floor on top of that C-wing that's closest to the auditorium up there. So in addition to that, I think we have the HVAC replacement at the high school, and replacing some of the aging units there with newer, more efficient units. And the third project is additions at the middle school.
In which we currently have at least a couple of programs at the middle school, as Ms. Stafford knows, that are what I call without a home. They're either in an outside mobile unit, or they're floating in terms of a temporary space requirement. So the one at the middle school addresses an obvious need for classroom space as well. The HVAC at the high school, just as a point of interest before these guys share the pricing with everything, now is definitely the time to do the HVAC at the high school, because we have an approved application in the hopper with the state for a little over $1.1 million in reimbursement to help us do that reimbursement of the HVAC systems at the high school. So that helps tremendously. We want to take advantage of that state funding that's out there to help us do that. So
We did we had our bid openings for the subcontract portions of the project on November the 17th in here. And David, if you'll go down the items on here, you've got, the board members have got this information in front of them, but we'll hit some of the highlights, I guess, as we go down the list, and
I
then,
don't know what detail you want, but you'll notice the couple here, there's, work package 20, 21, 22, and 23, we did not use the low price on. And I got a description there of why we didn't use the low price. I guess it's 19.
usually that raises the most questions when we have somebody that bids the job, and we, for some reason, don't use their number, so we wanted to bring that to you so you'd understand what it is that went into those recommendations on our part.
19 and 20 is AAA commercial floors on those, that's floor covering, and they do work for the owner too, outside of our contract, they do a lot of y'all floor covering now that y'all got used to using. But we put those two work packages together on the floor covering and the hard tile, the carpet and VCP and hard tile, put all that together. And then you'll notice work package 20 and 21, the contractor that bid that submitted a bid on that and it was low. We've had bad experiences with that contractor before they actually sued us on the last two jobs we done together with them, so we don't want to get in that again, so.
They delayed the job and created a lot of aggravation for the projects that we did in the past, and we just don't recommend that they do the projects just because they'll, we believe, create problems again. It's just not worth the risk to take with them.
And then work package 23 is visual display boards. ADP did not include the full scope of the work, which was the installation. They priced material only, but they didn't price the installation of the material. I don't know what you want to look at, how far in detail. Well, one thing we do need to mention is that all the HVAC alternates you see over toward the right side of the page, we got alternates 1 through 10 on the high school at the heading up there, and alternate number 1 on the middle school. All the HVAC alternates were taken by the owner. This thing come into budget, I think we were shooting at $7.2 million, and we're a little below that, and is able to get all the alternates, which is not really a wish list by the owner, but if you want Ray Pack, alternate number 10, alternate, or on high school alternate number 10, if you want Ray Pack, that's one specific supplier, and you can't get that in the public bid job for state funds unless you do it owner preferred, so it's got to be alternate. But there was enough money left over to get all the HVAC alternates included in that same price.
We were very pleased with the numbers as they came in. We were expecting them to be at a certain level, and they actually came in a little bit less than that. So it was nice to be able to get some good competitive numbers from the subcontractors on the job. So we expect to have a good group of subs here on the project as well. So it has worked out on paper at least for a good project. We bid it all together and to combine the different phases of the project so we could get better pricing. And in doing so, we believe we were able to save some dollars on the job. Even though they're sort of somewhat of 3 separate little entities, we track them, 3 different projects, but they are actually one lump sum project.
We have one overhead and one superintendent, I don't know what we call him, the master superintendent or what, but one general superintendent overseeing all 3 projects at one time. This saves y'all some money. And also I'd like to point out too that there is a contingency of 5%, which is what we normally do on renovation projects. You never know what you're gonna hit. Right now at this meeting, none of us expect to spend a penny of this money, but we don't know what we're gonna run into. That 5% contingency is $346,305. That's your money that we won't never spend, we never have spend a penny of that without the board's approval or Keith's approval, Dr. Rayfield. That's your money, that's the owner's, and it actually says that somewhere or another that it's owner's contingency.
Yes.
Also, there are allowances for items that we didn't know exactly what money to put in there for. If this was a hard bid job and we bid it ourselves on bid day and turned in our bid, we'd put money in for these things. But since it's a CM job, we can put an allowance in and spend it if we need to. If not, we give it back to you, it's still your money. And again, we don't spend any of that money ever without everybody knowing where that money's going, what it's going for.
The allowance, that's like number 31, the hydraulic elevators, is that correct?
Well, that's correct. We've had to make an allowance out of that. This elevator is not typical in that it's a low, let me again, Chris,
It's called a LULA elevator, limited use, limited access is the acronym for it. And it's a little bit smaller elevator, of course, it meets all the specs that, one is gonna meet, but it saves us money on the project because we don't have to have as deep an elevator pit and 2 or 3 different things that we really don't need, and we can use this elevator in lieu of a standard elevator.
It meets ADA compliance and all that stuff, and I do know that a regular elevator, just the elevator itself costs $50,000. We put in $30,000 allowance for this, and it's only got like a 1-foot pit, which is just about nothing versus a 4-foot pit for a regular elevator.
I think space-wise, we decided in one of our meetings that we're looking at basically one person and a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It would have the capacity to handle a person in a wheelchair and a person pushing a wheelchair.
One more question on number 9, the pre-engineered metal buildings. American Building, it said incomplete scope. What's missing from that?
This work package called for the rigid insulation under the metal roof sheets and peel and stick water shield under there also to be included. They didn't include that.
They
There's
just-
some other stuff
They just
too.
quoted the pre-engineered building and not any of the accessories that come with it that were spelled out in the bid package. We're actually a dealer with American Buildings, and we were sort of surprised they didn't quote it correctly, but we also did a good bid as well.
Thank you.
All these bids were opened, when were they opened?
They
In
were
here on
open
November the
17th.
17th.
I've got a question, did we not get any other bids on number 5 or 7?
No, we did not.
Nobody bid those jobs?
We
have-
did not, we never can hardly get anybody to bid against us on those work packages.
We are typically 30 to 40% cheaper than any of the other folks that we ever get to be able to bid on. Matter of fact, we just bid one in Gwinnett County on a large school job down there, and it was, I think our price on the masonry was about like 3.8 million, and the closest one we had to it was a contractor out of Virginia, and they quoted it for 6 million. And that's typical of what we see. It's just hard to get people to quote against us doing the work ourselves with our own folks. It's just, and we've done it for so long, and so have a lot of other CMs that do the type of work that we do. It's just hard to find somebody that will compete against us.
Okay. I've got another question, Dr. Rayfield. I just, at the high school, I know this second floor is on here, how many students have we, where are we at the high school? I mean, for the instance, this year and last year, how many students do we have more than we had a year ago or 2 years ago at the high school?
John, what's the current?
We're right now, like sitting at 835, and we're up probably 2 years ago from about 100 kids, Dr. Williams, is that right? 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
we were mid to upper 700s for a number of years.
It was 100 kids when we were tracking it at the very beginning of the school year.
And I think, Mr. Hill, but 2 or 3 years ago was the first time we hit 800 ever,
Mhm.
and then that's just continued to climb.
How many rooms, how many classrooms will be on this second floor addition, this C wing?
6 with the capacity for 8.
Yeah. Mhm.
There are, the plans are in the back, that we can look at when we finish our the meetings. But there's a multi-purpose room that can be divided.
They're large labs.
I will tell you this, I will thank Bowen and Watson and Southern A&E for being very patient with me. As I came in, they had already initially really done a great deal of design work on both the middle and the high school. And we brought that down from somewhere around 10 million down to the 7.5 that you see. So we took a great deal of the cost and what we considered to be maybe space that would not be utilized 100% during the school day. Tried to take as much of that out of there as we could and still accommodate the growth that was happening.
What about the additions at the middle school? How many classrooms are we talking about?
5,
5,
4, 5.
one of those being a
Ag lab. They're currently in a mobile.
And is the middle school, are we maxed out with our current classrooms, or have we grown? If we up 50 or 100 students?
We're up, what some of the ag classroom right now is a mobile unit. Our theater arts class is just in a regular classroom, which we can't fit very many kids in there. Would like to move the weight
We're
room
trying,
kids into the gym, the chorus, to do out of the gym.
Okay.
I have a question. What start date are you thinking of using?
We have got to, the reason we bid this time of the year is to be able to get submittals done, contracts written, submittals done and approved, or all this material for the summer work ordered, where it's here the day school's out. We got to be able to hit the ground running on this HVAC work, got to be done during the summer. And the second floor addition on Wing C. We need to get the steel, structural steel up and brick masonry done on the outside, if at all possible, before the students come back. The middle school is not quite so critical in that we won't be working over somebody's head. At least we can keep the students out of that area, but not at the high school. There'll be too much noise going on in the lower floor for us to be building the second story on, much less the risk of rain, intrusion, whatever.
And the goal being to try to get the contracting and the purchase orders, submittals, shop drawings, all that stuff done, so the materials will be here in time to start it in the summertime and not affect the students. With the minimal impact to the students is the whole idea of trying to do it, bid it now so it can be ready by sometime.
Okay, I'm curious.
What's our fund balance in our E-Splash account right now?
So you got about $1
$1
million,
million?
it'll be about
When does E-Splash run out?
2018.
Yeah.
September of 18, so we've got like about 22 months.
What we project after, if indeed we followed through with these three projects, after our reimbursement back from the state, bottom line is we estimate if everything remains constant, and that's no big drop, no big increase in collections, you'd be looking at approximately 1.7 million in the fund balance of the E-Splosh after these projects were complete.
And I would think most of that $350,000, whatever in owner contingency will be added to that also.
That's after you cut out, it went from 10 million to 7 million. We would
And I will say, in the redesign, what we worked with the principals to do, obviously, we were able to leverage our Chromebook initiative and those kind of things to take some of that lab space and make it usable classroom space. And so we didn't have to come in with as many new labs as had been projected on the front end of that.
What did you say the projection, would the fund balance be 1.7?
1.7.
Because from the state now, we're asking, probably gonna get 1.1, you
It's
said?
approved. We will be
Okay.
reimbursed 1.1 million for the HVAC on the high school. That reimbursement will come, fall of 17. Next fall.
What kind of things did we cut to save all that money?
Mainly those labs.
Well, originally in the middle school, there was supposed to be the B wing and the C wing. We took out all the classrooms in the B wing because when you take the current labs down, you were opening up probably 4 more classrooms inside the building. That addition to the B wing, which is that middle hallway perpendicular in the main building, by not having those 4 classrooms and now breaking down labs, there was no need to add 4 more classrooms, because the last thing Ms. Stafford wants is to then have 4 new classrooms that aren't being used, whether it's new addition or the lab. So with the Chromebooks now, we're able to do that. That right there was a big chunk. Also, on that C-wing addition, we looked at classroom space right now. She mentioned how the theater arts program is floating around. They have a classroom there, as does ag, and then there are classrooms upstairs for other instructional purposes. Originally, that was a business lab. The ag was there, which stayed, but it also had a technology STEM type lab. Those things, that's a chunk of money. And so what the big thing that came down to it is, as we were meeting, you know, you can offer kids things, but you also have to look and see then how dispersed the kids are when they go to those different electives. Well, if all of a sudden you now got an average class size of 15, let's say, because you've got so many offerings for sixth graders to go to, sign me up. Versus you're offering so many things that you don't have the, you know, the quality may not be there, the number of participation may not be there. So we scaled back on the number of offerings, so we didn't add those additional labs in, and we kept it strictly to let's look at the space, let's make sure we've got the classrooms with the lab space inside, let's keep our ag, let's keep our drama, and that saved a chunk of the money right there alone. Then at the high school, there were some alternates. You'll notice in there some roller shades and some other wainscoting and blinds that we just said, let's put as alternates and see where they come in. So through all of that stuff, it scaled it back quite a bit. And there's been a good bit of time spent on that, just trying to make sure that you know, when we rolled into this SPLOST, there were $2 million in the bank. Last thing you want to do is finish up a SPLOST, not knowing what projects are still left to do, and not have the funds to do it. So we scaled back where we needed to.
And a lot of the composition of those classrooms or labs, if we changed or altered the purpose of that particular space, like in one case, I think we saved a chunk of money on drains for one of the science labs. Things like that were just very expensive and would not be needed when we changed the daily usage or traffic that was going to be using that particular space.
Question that I have, originally, we had planned on, because we're pay-as-you-go, we had planned on staggering the projects, so we stayed where our fund balance, you know, stayed lucrative enough to make sure, you know, we could pay the bills as they come in. Do y'all feel good about and safe that, you know, because they're talking about doing all three at the same time to save money on having the person in charge there, excuse me, whatever, the superintendent. Are we gonna be okay on our fund balance doing that? Because I know we had staggered it before because of collection.
There will be, I think, probably just as there has been in the past, there will be probably some areas in there where you have to transfer money. But there will not ever be a point, I don't think, where you will have enough money. At the end, you'll have the funds to do the project. I think there are a couple of months that we look at the situation where it's just a flow issue, where you're gonna have to move a little bit from general to cover it and then move it back when it comes back in. But I would imagine you've encountered that with previous
Well,
budgets.
more cities come from Dr. Rayfield, this board, when we got this E-Splosh passed, we made a commitment to the taxpayers. We had meetings that we would not borrow the money, that we would pay as you go. And the way where this, I guess, where this board sits is, we want to pay as you go. We don't have any problem, I don't think, with the projects, but we don't want to go borrowing money because we've committed to the taxpayers. And you wasn't here, and I'm just bringing you up to speed here, that we didn't want to borrow money and pay interest on the money. Even though sometimes,
This doesn't violate that in
Yeah.
any way. That continues that same strategy.
so if we start this, all three of these projects, when would these projects be completed? Would they be completed in 18 months?
Yeah.
The HVAC will be shorter than that.
Yes, HVAC needs to be done in the summer, and the high school is such that we got to do the bulk of the work before the students get back that we can. So we will.
Shell in the building during the summertime, and then continue working after school started. And then the middle school, we won't start it till later, to stagger those.
One good aspect of bidding them all three at one time too is you get the advantage of bidding the bigger job, so we get better prices. even though it's spread out a little further, you still get the advantage.
I guess what I'm asking, will you need the $7 million before our 22 months runs out, is what I'm asking, because the board would be put in a position, we'd have to go borrow money to make the project work.
No, there's no,
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Is that what we want to know?
That's what we wanted to make sure.
We just don't want to be behind the 8 ball in 12 months, say, hey, we gotta have this money, you know, so I think we'd be good. Which 1.1 would help bring that down to about $6 million, I understand, but still, it would take the last 5 months would be to our fund balance. We're getting about 300,000 a month now average, so that'd be 1.5 million.
Yes. And again, I'm moving forward with projects that were on the table when I got here, and they were included in this referendum. So we didn't go outside of that, and we didn't go money-wise with something that we couldn't continue to stay with pay-as-you-go.
I'd like to ask one thing, Dr. Rayfield, because it's been brought to me a lot with taxpayers. Well, we're doing all these projects, could we not air condition the elementary school gym? I mean, their gym, they don't have air conditioning in it, and I've heard from several taxpayers that
As
have
long as this
children.
board makes it a priority, we certainly can.
Well, I mean,
Well,
their gym's real hot, I mean, you know,
If the board makes it a priority, we can make it happen. We sure can.
well, that was
I
my
mean-
next question. With us saving this money, is there any way we could at least get a bid as far as, you know, fixing the elementary, especially the air? I mean, it definitely is hot on those babies, so.
Understood. But there's a different I mean, we can get prices, but that's a different process than, I can't, need to commingle
I understand.
the two.
I understand, but it's hard for us to explain to taxpayers if we're doing a $7 million addition, why we can't get AC in the elementary school gym, and I know I've heard it for the last 3 years. And of course, I won't hear it much anymore.
Right.
We will.
I was surprised that you didn't have it when I got it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So, it would very much, we'll very much explore that if that's the wishes of the board. But I would not undertake a project like that without you guys telling me that's a priority, because it'll be expensive.
Well, the thing that I would like to find out is if at the end of this SPOS, with what we've collected, if there's money left over, if we can use it wisely as far as doing maintenance on the elementary, doing maintenance, you know, how are we on buses, or just get a recommendation from you as far as where we can legitimately allocate those funds to that would benefit the system as much as possible, I guess is what I'm wanting to say. And I would be very interested and excited to hear your recommendation on that down the road.
Okay.
Are we gonna go
Not today.
for another, we're gonna go for, probably go for another SPOS law?
Oh, yes, yes, we'll certainly propose for renewal. And those, you know, again, that's a very extensive discussion when you start talking about framing a referendum, and certainly a discussion for
Well, you know,
another day.
before SPOS, we were sitting with all kind of kids and trailers and everything else spread over the campus, one tornado away from just wiping out a bunch of people's parents' children.
Mhm. Right.
There are probably still a couple of projects on this East Splash we don't have on the agenda, isn't it, Keith?
Yes.
Yes,
Didn't we have the field house, and
One
football
field house.
fields want something that we won't be able to do this East Splash?
Well, we've got that, plus, we're replacing the heating and air at the high school right now. The carpeting's wore out, so we've got to replace it, we've got to repaint. The primary school, the carpeting's bad. Basically all schools, carpeting's bad, needs repainting totally. And there's many items that we need just to remodel the buildings that we've got. So we do need another SPOS to come along and take care of that.
Not putting y'all on the spot, just like the elementary school gym, say per se, what would be a rough estimate to put air conditioning in that gym?
$125,000.
125,000?
Good job.
You concurs. Well, if we're spending 7, we ought to be able to spend 125 if the board's all in agreement with that. I'd like to see that done personally myself, but how does the board feel?
I'll get my ears bit pretty
I mean,
bad about it too.
Yeah, I'll get more complaints about that than anything.
But y'all don't want to put it in with.
No,
this,
we ain't
We're
gonna put it in
Like to get
tonight.
a part
Right,
of-
okay.
part of it.
We gonna put in what you worked on 6 months.
Okay.
Get a
But we
part
would
of it.
like, I think the board would like to, maybe after the first year, get it started. I mean, it's not gonna be hot probably till May,
Yes.
but still it'd be something to get done maybe
Yes.
this summer.
Yes,
And if we're gonna end up with $1.7 million fund balance, 125,000, we still gonna have $1.5 million left.
we'll be glad to get prices on that.
Thank you. So if this happens, David, when would y'all probably projected break ground, say?
Well, we won't do anything, well, actually, we will. We were anticipating not doing anything till school's out, but the electrician and HVAC subcontractors want to go ahead as soon as we can get contracts written and insurance in place to move into the high school the nights and weekends and start running conduit, do whatever they can to lessen the workload over the summer.
We've got a huge amount of work to do this summer.
Yes.
It really is a large workload, and any amount of work that we can get with the infrastructure in advance of that is a big help, so. If you let us, we'll go in and those guys are eager and really ready to do it.
The middle school, it's a separate building, it won't be attached to none of the existing buildings?
No, it's,
The middle school addition
Yeah.
will attach to the C wing.
But it won't be inside, I mean.
No, it's outside.
So it won't
It'll just be an
interrupt.
extension, it'll be an extension of the back.
Keith, it's this portion right here. It just continues on out back.
Okay, so it won't interrupt school.
No,
No, it won't be.
No,
it'll change the flow just slightly, but nothing
That
big.
that can go on during school year.
That and the addition of C wing second floor will be going on after the students get back, but the major part of the work needs to be over with.
The structure will be done, the
Yeah,
outside
structure,
structure.
and I hope the bridge.
Get it dried in.
Yeah.
Get it dried in and shelled in, so it's not gonna provide a weather problem in the lower floor.
We've got to turn that old roof off when we get a new roof on.
Any other questions?
those projects do appear on your 7 o'clock agenda.
Yes.
For approval.
Anything else? Dr. Rayfield?
Next, we'll have a review and discussion of our CCRPI results. Dr. Williams.
well, Mr. Davenport, since this is your last series of meetings, you're one of a few board members who was here before we ever started testing. Back in the late 90s when we had our graduation test, first class in 1998 had to graduate with certain requirements across the state in order to be considered a graduate in the state of Georgia. Since that time, things have evolved a little bit. One of the biggest things has been the accountability side. Most of you are familiar or were around when you heard AYP, Adequate Yearly Progress. Back in 2012, that changed over to what's called College and Career Ready Performance Index. It went from something that was very basic and simple, from reading, ELA, and math and graduation rate, to now about 20 indicators per grade span. Last week, matter of fact, last Thursday, State Department of Education released the most recent results for 2016. What I wanted to give you was just kind of an overview of where we stand as a school system, both as a district, within our RESA, within our state, but also at each grade span. When you look at us as a school system, you'll notice a few things. Last year was a down year for us. We had a little bit of a drop. The number one reason was you had a change in the test. We'd gotten very good at taking the CRCT. We'd gotten very good at rote memorization, spitting things back out. Where we struggled was more of that high order thinking. What were the writing responses? How do we respond to text? how do you explain your reasoning behind things? We made adjustments last school year, we're continuing to make them this year, but just wanted to give you a quick overview in just a few moments to show you that as a system, last year we were 6th in Pioneer RESA. Pioneer RESA districts are shown at the bottom. It's in that northeast part of the state. Banks, and does include one city system, Gainesville City. We are a pretty diverse RESA as far as size is concerned. You have a district as low as Towns with about 1,100 kids to Hall County that has over 30,000 kids. But what was interesting is if you look at that table in the upper left corner, district proportionality, the big part is our CCRPI score went up from 78.5 to 86.5. Within Pioneer RESA, we went from a ranking of 6th to 1st. In Georgia, the previous year, we were about middle of the pack, but this most recent year, 2016, we were 7th in the state. Now, the 6 systems that were higher than us: Oconee County, Fayette County, Forsyth County, Beaufort City, Jefferson City, and Decatur City, which is just east of Atlanta. The average economically disadvantaged rate of those 6 counties is 20%. We're 60. So it shows you how well our kids are performing. But it also shows you how well our kids have to continue to perform in order to keep these type of numbers or improve. That's the biggest challenge. How do you go from a school system that has high-performing kids who shouldn't be performing high based on economical disadvantage to then competing with those kids who have a third of the free reduced rate that we have? As you look across, you can see the elementary school as a whole. What's interesting about the elementary school is that we went up from 74.7 to 80.4. So, we went up 5.7 points, but the state went down over 5 points. So you're talking about a net difference of 10. So while most elementary schools in the state of Georgia went down, we jumped from 71st to 33rd. You look at the middle school, we made great gains in all the areas. Our CCRPI score went up there. We were 5th in RESA, finished 2nd then last year, and we were the 10th overall RESA or school district in the state of Georgia when it comes to the 180 traditional school systems. In our high school, we made some changes at the high school regarding some course sequence to better align with students and their success, and you can see that that's paying off. We went from 82.1 in 2015 to 95.1 in 2016. We went from 6th in RESA to 1st, and in the state of Georgia, we went from 36 up to 4th. So we're in a comfortable area where we've been before. The year before last, in 2015, was a down year, but in 2016, we rebounded back to where we're used to seeing it. We still have work to do. You talk to our teachers, you talk to our students, you talk to our administrators. We continue to find ways to say, where is the child, and then where do we need to get them? Every kid has potential. Let's just make sure we reach that potential. We ask the best of our administrators and teachers and students, and they need to be asking the best of us. We've thrived in this community for a very long time because we have a group of people that care about people. And if you have teachers and a workforce that care about your students, you're able to do a lot of different things, and CCRPI here is just a very small fraction, and what you see is the impact on our kids. Down at the bottom, you can see the districts in Pioneer RESA region, all 14, as compared to the state. Not many went up. We went up in all 3 areas. Number of districts went down. So we're just really, really proud of the work, the effort, from our students, from our teachers, from our support staff, our administrators. It's a great part, it's a great team. We have great conversations, we push each other, but most importantly, whatever that expectation is, the kids rise to it. So if the teacher has great expectations for the kids, you oftentimes see them rise to those expectations. So as you look at this, there's a lot of information there, and I don't want to overwhelm you, I just want to give you a chance to look at it. I did provide you the website on there to go and review it. If you want to look at previous years, if you want to look at all the districts across the state of Georgia, if you want to break a district down to look at specific schools, you can do that as well. But this is presented in a way to where you look at us as a system, how we perform, how we collectively work together across K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. Any comments or questions? One thing I would like to point out, if you'll notice on there, if you go back prior to 2015, the way they calculated growth was only at a 25 points. They completely changed, progress, they completely changed the weights. So you can't really compare one year to the next, because they do change weights every couple of years. But when you look at challenge points, you may look at that and say, well, how many could we get? Challenge points is based on one thing, and it's what percentage of our kids are free and reduced, learning the language, and special education. And then, how many of those flags, performance flags, achievement-wise, of those did we earn? And in most cases, we might have, I don't think any school missed more than one flag. And so it just goes to show that those subgroup performances, that the performance overall continues to grow. I do have a major concern moving forward. The way they set up some of these numbers when it comes to challenge points, they took the first year of the milestones, which was 2015, and they said, from here to, let's say, 6 years from now, you have to get halfway to 100. So if you're a white subgroup, and you started off at 80, in 6 years, you got to get to 90. That's not that big of a jump one year to the next. But if you're special education, and you're at 40% one year, and in 6 years, you got to get to 70, that's a heck of a jump. What you're going to start to see across the state of Georgia over the next few years is challenge points starting to go down. You're going to see a lot of the subgroup performance not being able to meet those targets because of things like that. That's why they go back and recalculate it every few years. That's why they go back. The last thing they want to have are a bunch of school districts that look poor. When you see what happens with this work and you see some of the changes, we know that our staff do a great job, and this is just a reflection of just a portion of all that they do for us.
Good job.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Don't have anything else on the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, this time we'll adjourn our work session, and our regular meeting will start at 7 o'clock. So if anybody needs to go to the restroom or give them something to drink or something.
Board members, if y'all want to check out any of those plans, middle school and high school plans, in the back.
Okay.